Where have we stopped yesterday? What have we been talking about?
Pranas.
Pranas? I think we finished the subject of the pranas, didn't we?
Yeah.
So today I think I will just talk about kosha. Okay, this is another element in that has to be taught. The kosha basically is a kind of layer of existence. Okay, it's the idea behind the kosha. It's on the one hand, it is twofold actually, but this is in one thing. It's a plane on which you exist and in which you experience the world, kind of a tattva, like a plane, a deadness, like a sphere in which you experience. And on the other hand, it is a plane in which you are limited. It is a sphere that limits you, or that encloses basically your understanding on a certain level. Okay, there is especially, the physical body is a sphere through which you experience, and also a sphere where your experience is limited, because your experience can be limited within the physical. And there is also the sphere of your emotions, of your feelings, okay? And there is the sphere of your mind, of your thought, of your anticipations, the things you expect, the pictures you carry with you, the expectations you carry with you in your life, and so on. So there are all of these levels, basically. And these are the koshas. It is, it's still a little bit of a wide subject to talk about. I get the Taittiriya Upanishad. 1 second. When we talked about pranayama kosha, about the pranas yesterday, we actually talked about the phenomena that occur on pranayama kosha. So the phenomena that occur on the level of prana. It's a certain, you could say, a level inside of you, And the prana is depicted to be that force, that life force, that governs the body, that is the soul of the body. At least that's the way it's written in the Taittiriya Upanishad. So it governs the body. So like this perspective on the pranas as being that force that controls the body, like it is written also in the Shiva Samhita, is not too far off. It's also back up basically by the Taittiriya Upanishad to say that. The prana is suffusing the body and controlling the functions of the body. And by changing the functions of prana, you basically change the functions of body. There's also this element inside. And the koshas are in relationship now to the pranas, of which we talked yesterday, more a science that is trying to understand the human being as a whole. What is the human being? What is limiting the human being? And what are the subtle layers of the human being through which the human being can probably find its way to its core, or find its way home. That's a little bit what the teachings of the koshas tell us. I just close this door also. 1 second. For the sound. Okay. So there are many different, you could say a little bit of different variations of the koshas, depending on the school, okay? Or the lineage kind of, yeah. I have to say, my master Vidyanand taught us this form of the koshas, also the way they are described in the Taittiriya Upanishad, and I think it's a very, very simple and very beautiful way to describe it like this, because it's also a little bit phenomenological, which means it's just looking at what are you experiencing as a human being, and on basis of your individual experience, kind of, what are these levels of your experience? It's a little bit kind of a Samkhya approach, you could say, where you are going from the essential object back into that elements of the mind which are capable of perceiving this. So let's look at it. And then afterwards, and I'm very happy about this, we can do some drawings. That's why I have here some pencils. That's my favorite part always. So it starts, of course, like every Upanishad, just that you know, starts with Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavae Tejasvina Utitamastu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This is the prayer that's also in here. Right now I see it. It's the prayer that should that is praying for the relationship of the student of the teacher, and for the common effort to achieve the goal together, and for having the force and the energy to struggle together to have the highest understanding without dispute also. And the dispute is also meant to dispute in between the student and the teacher, because somehow, maybe the relationship was a hierarchical one between the student and the teacher in India, but also there was this element of trying to figure out together what is the truth. So it was a very discursive relationship also. And this is in here. May He protect us both together. May He nourish us both together. May we both acquire strength together. Let our study be brilliant. May we not cavil at each other. Om, peace, peace, peace. This is what I was saying before. Okay. The note of Brahman attains the highest. Here is a verse uttering that very fact. Brahman is truth, knowledge and infinite. He who knows that Brahman as existing in intellect, lodged in the supreme space in the heart, enjoys as identified with all-knowing Brahman all desirable things simultaneously. From that Brahman, which is the self, was produced space. From that space emerged air. From that air was born fire. From that fire was created water. From that water sprang up earth. From that earth were born the herbs. From the herbs was produced food. From food was born man. That man, such as he is a product of the essence of food. In this introduction, he's just saying, you should try to see the Brahman in everything, and you should carry the Brahman in your heart. And if you manage to do that, then you acquire supreme happiness. Okay? And from that Brahman comes a chain of effects, kind of, the elements. And from that elements finally comes earth, and earth is making the food, and you are that food. So at very first, this Upanishad is telling us, we are food. The human being is food, which means Anna. Okay, Anna is food. And Annamaya Kosha is the layer of the illusionist layer of food. You could translate this, because Anna is food and Maya is illusion and Kosha is shelled, layer that encaves you. So, of him this indeed is the head. This is the southern side. This is the northern side. This is the self. This is the stabilizing tail. He's saying, it's a little bit hard to listen, and this human being, okay. What is this body made out of? Well, okay, it's made out of a head, the body. It's made out of arms. It's made out of legs. It has a trunk, and it has a center. This is basically what this Upanishad tells us about what is Annamaya Kosha. This becomes more clear if you come to if we come to the next layers, because he always depicts each layer as having certain constituents, and this is very interesting. Of course, we all know the constituents of the physical body, but did you know the constituents of the other bodies? Well, because he names the other bodies in the same manner, so it's very good to think about this. So the human body has these constituents. All beings that rest on earth are born verily from food. Besides, they live on food, and at the end they get merged in food. Food was verily born before all creatures, therefore it is called the medicine for all. Those who worship food as Brahman acquire all the food. Food was verily born before all creatures, therefore it is called the medicine for all. Creatures are born of food. Being born, they grow by food. Since it is eaten, and it eats all creatures in the end, it is called food. So it basically says, we are that food. We eat and we get eaten. But as compared with this very self made out of the essence of food, as said before, there is also another inner self which is made out of air, vayu. By that, this one is filled up. This self is also of human form. Its human form takes that of the human form of the earlier one, Anamaya Kosha. So he says, there is another self, and this self is filling the other self up, so it's penetrating the body. And this self also has a human form, also has a head and arms and so on, but it is made out of air. And this air, of course, the translations may be a little bit difficult. What is meant Vayu, but Vayu is also just prana. It's a synonym, okay? It's not the element air, it's just prana, Vayu. Of this prana is the head, Vijnana is the southern side, Apana the northern side, space is the self, the earth is the tail that stabilizes. So what it's just saying is that of this pranayama kosha, the constituents of pranayama kosha are the 5 pranas. That's what we had before. We have apana, we have samana, we have maha prana, we have udana, and we have vijnana. Okay, and this body is made by these pranas. In the Shiva Samhita, we have a clearer description where these pranas are exactly located in the body. But it is said here that basically it has its head and its constituents are the movements of prana. And like you said correctly yesterday, the pranas in this perspective distinguish one from another through their specific movements. The one moves down is the one that facilitates the outward movement of the body. The other moves inward, okay? Again, one moves in circles or radiating, the other one moves upward, and again one is pervasive and moves all around. The senses act by following the vital force in the mouth. All human beings and animals that are there act similarly. Since on the vital force depends the life of all creatures, therefore it is called the life to all. Those who worship the vital force as Brahman attain the full span of life. Since on the vital force depends the life of all, it is called the life of all. Of the preceding physical one, this one indeed is the embodied self. So it's just saying that, that if you worship and if you care for that vital force, you will reach the full vitality and the full span of life. And that this one actually is the embodied self of the physical one. So that's the soul of the physical one, which kind of is a hint to a certain hierarchical order between these bodies. So the vital body is like controlling the physical, and the phenomena in the vital body, or the phenomena in the physical body occur first in the vital body. That's what all these energy healers also say, that your physical problems that you may have occur first in the vital body. Because the vital body is verily the embodied self of the physical body. We come later to this, it gets more and more interesting, you will see. As compared with this vital body, there is another internal self constituted by mind. By that, this one is filled up. That self constituted by mind is also of human shape. The human shape of the mental body takes after the human shape of the vital body. So it also has this form. Of that mental body, the Yaur mantras are the head, the Rik mantras are the right side, the Samana mantras are the left side, that Pramana portion is the self. The mantras seen by the Artavangiras are the stabilizing tail. Pertaining to this there is a verse. Okay, what does it mean? He's saying the mental body, which is that body is constituted out of mind, first of all has the same shape as the pranic body. It takes on the shape of this one. But interestingly, its constituents are the Yaur, Rik, Sama, the Vedas, the mantras. Okay, the mantras of the Vedas. The mantra, what is the mantra? The mantra is a mind tool. You know, man means mind. Tra, you know, is the tool basically. The mantra is the mind tool. The mantra is that that is programming the mind to have a certain experience. You know, the mantra is also repeated over and over again when you recite mantra, when you do japa especially, because the nature of the mantra is being a specific form and not so much being a specific insight, but the insight emerges out of the form. When you recite a mantra, you recite the form over and over again in your mind, so to give your mind the form of the mantra, so that out of that form the insight may emerge. That's why you're repeating it. What is that form? It's a pattern. It's basically, you could say, it's a limited specific knowledge about something. It is a particular knowledge. It is just like the knowledge about how to cook, the knowledge about how to walk, the knowledge about how to speak. It's a particular information. It is a certain pattern. In the same manner, the mantra is like that. There is a certain pattern in which the mind is projected, so that through that pattern you may have a certain experience. And he's just saying, you know, these Yaur, Rik and Sama, these are also symbolically stand for categories of particular knowledge. You see, because the Vedas were, of course, spiritual writings, but at this time in India, and that's a really old Upanishad, really old Upanishad. I think it's like, as far as I'm concerned, 1600 before about, so very, very old. And I think it's one of the oldest of the Upanishads at all. Like there's only a handful that may be even older or date the same time. So at this time, the knowledge of the society, okay, was basically symbolically depicted to be the Vedas. So the Vedas are the particular knowledge of society. They are the knowledge about philosophy, the knowledge about the ritual, the knowledge about how to live a life as a husband or as a wife. Like just the knowledge that constitutes society, the particular knowledge, also the knowledge of how to live a day-to-day life was basically laid down in the Vedas. Because day-to-day life was primary, also enclosed or framed by ritual, and ritual was of course in the Vedas. So here we see like we have these basic categories of knowledge, you know, that form the mind, the mantras of the Yaur Veda, the mantras of the Rik Veda, the mantras of the Sama Veda, and the mantras of the Artha Veda. Here comes a beautiful sentence. It took me a long time to understand that sentence actually, so I rewrote it, by the way. One is not subject to fear at any time. If one knows the bliss that is Brahman, failing to reach which Brahman as conditioned by the mind, words along with the mind turn back. It's a very bad translation. I think, I don't know, you know, sometimes when people respect a text too much, and they respect the text, they are more translating the text than actually translating into the language in which they want to translate. So at this specific point, I have the feeling that maybe that's correct Sanskrit, but that's not correct English anymore. but what is meant here is that one is not subject to fear at any time if one knows that Brahman that you cannot know by mind, because mind is conditioned by words, and if your words, which means categories, if your categories are trying to reach Brahman, they will turn back in front of him and therefore fail to reach him. But that's indirectly what is meant here, that Brahman can be known beyond category. Okay, I'll try to read the sentence again. One is not subject to fear at any time if one knows that bliss that is Brahman. Failing to reach which words, along with the mind, turn back. But Brahman is failed to be reached by words because they are conditioned along with the mind, so they turn back. So it's just saying, that whatever that mental body is, it cannot reach Brahman. So you have to somehow go beyond that categorization of the mental body in order to reach Brahman. Of that preceding vital one, this mental one is verily the embodied self, which means that prana is subject to mind, in the same matter as the body is subject to prana. And all these energy healers, of which you for sure know many, also say that constantly. So that the mind controls prana, and prana is controlled by the mind. That thoughts control prana, the way energy flows. Expectations control prana. The mental images, the directions you create with your mind, control prana. Prana flows along your mind, the roads of your mind. In the Yoga Kundalini Upanishad, we have this statement in the very beginning that basically the fluctuations of consciousness have two causes. They have the cause is prana and mental modification, or mind, vasanas, mind stuff. So, and the thing is that here also we see this connection, that basically when the mind is stilled, prana is stilled. You have this very often. But you also have it the other way around, by the way. When prana is stilled, the mind is stilled. But here I have to tell you, that prana is never stilled without the mind. Why? Because even if you do pranayama, you cannot do pranayama if you do not pay proper attention, so in order to still the prana. That's why somehow it is always the mind that is stilled first. Even if the focus is put on when you still the prana, then the mind becomes still. You always have that focus. But the truth is that you cannot still the prana without the mind first. It's always the mind that has to concentrate on your exercise, so the exercise having effect, and even it's a pranayama. So it's the mind that gives the direction for the prana to still. And then when the prana is still, the mind also has a new experience and comes to rest completely. But it was the mind who gave the direction first. So the mind, in a way, is the guide of prana. So this is, by the way, I didn't name the Sanskrit words for this. The body made out of prana is pranayama kosha. Okay? And the body made out of mind is manomaya kosha. Okay? And then comes the next one, vijnana maya kosha. As compared with this mental body, there is another internal self constituted by valid knowledge. By that one, this one is filled up. This one, as aforesaid, has verily a human shape. It is humanly shaped in accordance with the human shape of the earlier one. So here it gets beautiful. Vijnana The thing is, these are complicated terms. Vijnana is translated very often in many different words. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but I think, that there are several words for consciousness and several words for knowledge. And Vijnana is sometimes translated as insight, consciousness or knowledge. But it is more likely that it is best translated as that knowledge derived from a state of consciousness. Okay, Vijnana. So it is a form of knowledge, but a knowledge derived from a certain state of insight. Yeah, there are different terms for knowledge, and Vijnana is one of them. So this is like maybe there is no good English pendant, good English translation for Vijnana. I think the best is to look at it like this. But it is not particular knowledge. Vijnana is not knowing how to repair a heater, or knowing how to make coffee. Whereas that knowledge of Manomaya Kosha has this quality. The knowledge of Manomaya Kosha is particular. Whereas Vijnana is knowledge derived from insight, out of a certain state of consciousness. So which kind of knowledge could this be? What is the quality of this knowledge that is derived from insight? To some degree, you could also think the other way around. If Vijnana Maya Kosha is the soul of the mind, which it is very likely, what is your mind founded on? Like, what are those structures that you take for granted and on basis of which your thoughts are created? Because there are certain, there is a foundation upon which you create your own thoughts that you usually do not question. Something that is for you self-evident. Self-evident knowledge. What is that self-evident knowledge?
Experience.
What you experience, that's correct. But why do you experience something specific? Why do you experience the world in a certain way? Because that's also a question you can ask. Not everybody experiences the world in the same way. Everybody is founding his own knowledge on experience, but people having different experiences. It's usually the things people believe in. They believe in to be important. Those things make your experience somehow. It's your principles, it's the principles that guide you through life. The values you orient yourself after. Especially a very right-wing person, for this person it would be self-evident, that protecting your culture and your friendship and valuing, hard work and that there are dark forces out there who want to harm my life. This mindset is self-evident. The world is like this. For this person, this is the world. The world is a place in which I have to fight for the preservation of my being, because otherwise they eat me. Self-evident truth for this person. For another person, the world is a place on which you have to have compassion for another. For another person, the world is a place where the environment needs to be protected because it is beautiful. For another person, the world is a place where friendship has the highest value. For another person, the world is a place in which we have to fight for justice, as without justice, there can be no peace. You see, people having certain visions of the world, other people, terrible people, may have a vision of the world as a place in which I have to dominate others and make them suffer. For some people, that's the world, and that's their Vijnana, that's their insight on basis of their own consciousness. So, the knowledge of Vijnanamaya Kosha are the principles upon which fundament your mind is funded. These things are the principles. Of him, faith is verily the head, righteousness is the right side, truth is the left side, concentration is the self, and the great principle, buddhi, mahat, is the stabilizing tail. The intellect is the stabilizing tail, the power to have insight. Pertaining to this, there is a verse. Knowledge actualizes a sacrifice and it executes the duties as well. All the gods meditate on the firstborn Brahman, conditioned by knowledge. If one knows the knowledge Brahman and if one does not err about it, one abandons all sins in the body and fully enjoys all enjoyable things. Of that preceding mental one, this one is verily the embodied self. So it's saying, no matter what you think in your head, everything you're thinking is based on Vijnana Maya Kosha. So you exist in a certain sphere of consciousness, out of which you derive the very foundations of your thought, the principles. And they are the soul of Manomaya Kosha. That's why you cannot persuade a psychopath per means of argument to be a good person. You cannot talk to somebody who is evil and argue that person into being good. Just saying, but look at the arguments, if you do that bad thing, you will suffer by yourself. This will not help. Because the particular knowledge you're giving is not insight. It is not derived from a state of consciousness. It is just a pattern. It is a mantra. Of course, if that person would repeat constantly the mantra, being a good person will make me happy, being a good person will make me happy, being a good person will make me happy. That's a mantra. Then out of this mantra, that person can derive an insight. But it is the insight you're looking for, not the mantra. And this insight is basically the energy of the consciousness of Vijnana Maya Kosha, the elevated consciousness of it. So likewise, if you turn it around, a very good and loving person can also not be pursued by argument to be a bad person. It's not possible. Yeah. When you're a very compassionate person, you will not become evil just because somebody says you can make more money when you're mean. You will try to find another way. You will not go that way because it will not feel good to you. And you will not betray your principles. And you will not betray them because your principles are not anything. They are founded on your consciousness about what the nature of reality is. And you cannot betray the nature of reality. The truth is nobody can do that. A psychopath, in a way, cannot betray the nature of his reality. If he thinks the world is a place of suffering, then that's the world. How can he tell himself it's not? It's the world for him. At the same time, a person who knows the world is a place of compassion cannot betray that, because the world is like this. What can the people do? That's the world. Just that you say, you have to trust your experience. See? Vijnana Maya, or is that knowledge derived from consciousness, which is your experience of life. Okay, good. And then he's saying that knowledge actualizes a sacrifice. I think that's a very terrible translation. What's very likely meant here is that your insight, here knowledge is Vijnana, makes a sacrifice, so an action that you do, either fruitful or not. So it is your insight into an action or also into a ritual action that makes the ritual action fruitful. It is not the ritual action itself. Of course, when you come and you light the smoking stick for the deity and you put it and you do it without any consciousness, Vijnana, then it's useless. But if you do it with a certain insight, then it is useful. This is what he means with knowledge actualizes a sacrifice. So it means that it's your insight into something that makes it valuable, and it also executes all duties as well. So the duty becomes fruitful through your knowledge. And all the gods meditate on the first Brahman, conditioned by knowledge. Because if you do that, then you enjoy all enjoyable things. Why is this? Because it is buddhi, it is mahat, it is the intellect. It is insight, pure insight. Okay? And then there is Anandamaya Kosha. As compared with this cognitive body, there is another internal self constituted by bliss. By that one, this one is filled up. This one, as aforesaid, has verily a human shape. It is humanly shaped in accordance with the human shape of the earlier one. So this one is constituted by joy. Because you could say, what is the soul of Vijnana Maya Kosha? Of consciousness. The soul of consciousness is ecstasy. You know, it is the very core of being in a state of ecstasy. And you know, somehow if you look deep inside of you, you know that it's true. Deep inside of you, you know that there is this state inside of you which is very, very subtle, in which you exist in the bliss of your own self. You know, you just have a feeling of blissful union with yourself. There is ecstasy deep inside of you. That's why people want to have ecstasy, because it's very deep inside of them. And the consciousness that makes the world for you is founded on the degree in which you experience bliss or the degree in which you don't. That person that thinks the world is suffering says that because he experiences little bliss. And that person that says the world is a place in which I have to help another experiences bliss when he helps another. So it is the bliss that is the soul of Vijnana Maya Kosha. But how is it made? Well, he also has a head and arms and legs and trunk. Of him verily, joy is the head, enjoyment is the right side, hilarity is the left side, bliss is the self, and Brahman is the tail that stabilizes. So divinity is its very core that stabilizes it. This is like the body made out of joy, of ecstasy. So and then this Upanishad, in my personal opinion, continues very cryptically. So I will leave it at this point. But that's not everything. What is, Ananda Maya, bliss illusion layer, Ananda Maya Kosha. So it's still your illusion of bliss. Because in this degree in which you experience that bliss or which you don't experience the bliss, what is beyond that? Bliss.
Feelings?
Finish?
Feelings?
Feelings?
Yeah.
Now I would more put them to pranayama kosha. But of course, it is a feeling, that bliss, okay? It's the soul, Atman. It's the light of consciousness, okay? That is said to be the very core of these koshas. So there is now, why are we teaching this? Or why are we talking about this? We're talking about this because there is this, on the one hand, it is good, to experience yourself as a multi-layered being that is experiencing through many layers, and you can be kind of captured or stuck in a certain layer of experience, and then it is always useful to look for the source of this experience on a higher layer sometimes in order to solve it. Why am I thinking this? Which principles do I carry with me? Why am I feeling this? Which thoughts do I carry with me? Why does my body experience this? But what is my prana like? Let's say like this, because the one controls the other. On the other hand, there is this two-way, through the koshas. The one is top down and the other is bottom up. It is said, that on the one hand, the phenomena on the higher level, which you unlock with the power of your own freedom. I lose a few words for this after. And then there is the bottom up principle, how you move through them, how you transform them, and this is by purifying them actively. So the top-down principle, how does this principle work? How can I change my state of bliss You just do it. You do it by the power of your inert freedom. This is the master path. This is the path of the people who are internally masters. So if you are deep inside your heart, you have a certain power, then what would you do is, you would not use any means to experience bliss, any technique. You would not use any means to experience the right principles or the stillness and the openness of thought or the strength of prana. You would just do it out of your internal freedom. You're independent. So you're not doing it because the truth is, that, and that's the other truth about this world somehow, that you cannot look for causes for things. Why? Because all things are in an endless chain of cause and effect. And all things will have a cause and they will have an effect. And that effect will be the cause of another effect. And that effect, again, will be the cause of a new effect. There is endless chains of cause and effects. You cannot solve a problem with a different cause. You have an effect and you solve it with a new cause for another effect. You're saying, I am feeling very bad, so now I make myself feel very happy, and then that happiness again becomes the cause of another kind of fake emotion that makes you suffer in a way. Everything is somehow in this chain. So to some degree, a liberation from those things that make you suffer in a way is always a free choice. It's good to use certain tools to make yourself free, but it's also very good to allow yourself to just be free.
There are some links with pyramid of Maslow.
Pyramid of what?
Maslow. It's like first you primary needs. Second, like
the pyramid of value of needs. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it seems to have some similarity.
You're right. It's a similar picture. Yeah. It is similar. Yeah? You could say it like this. Mm-hmm. That your first basic primal need is of course your body. Your second primal need is your prana. Your third is the development of your mind. You're right actually. Yeah. It is kind of a pyramid of a hierarchy of needs also, the koshas. But anyways, so there is this one way, but this way you have to unfold for yourself. You have to discover for yourself. Nobody can teach you this. You just can meditate for yourself about it, if you are just free or if you're not free. Because it's something you decide, in a way. And the other way is that the koshas are said to can be purified so that the more gross kosha can penetrate into the more subtle one. Which is like, you would say when I want to experience the purity of pranayama kosha, then I would do physical exercise and purify my body. And I would purify my body with proper food and proper exercise and proper sweating. And then my pranayama kosha would be visible. And I would reach freedom from the body. I would feel myself and experience myself as vital energy. And then, when you want to experience yourself as the free mind, you would need to transcend pranayama kosha, which you would do with pranayama exercises. Proper rhythm of life, proper clean food, proper social associations, proper actions. Because I tell you, the yamas and the niyamas are also tools to purify pranayama kosha. At least some of them. Sosa, santosa, contentment. These kind of things of the niyamas. And then, when you would like to say, well, now I experience myself as the free mind, as the still mind. I would like to transcend that mind and experience myself as embodiment of principle, an ancient-like existence. Well, in this case, you would need to transcend mind, which you do by means of meditation, by means of concentration. By means of transforming your desires also. Through the yamas, detachment. And when you are in the sphere of the principles, Vijnana Maya Kosha, from up there, I have to say, the only way to reach higher is just in meditative absorption. Or by looking deep inside your heart. Because Vijnana Maya Kosha is in your heart. And from there you can go higher. So these layers, it's good to experience yourself as being that layered being and having different spheres of existence. It also helps you to order your internal experience of life. Because there is a hierarchical order in the experience in your life. There is in your phenomenon. This is not a lie, this is not an illusion. There is this hierarchical order. It's just that people usually don't order it because it doesn't seem to be useful to them, but they constantly experience it. There is like the inner world that is working through the body into the outside world. And you do not experience yourself fully as body. You experience yourself as spirit encaged in body. This is the way what the human experience is. You are that soul that is looking out through these two holes of your eyes into the world, and that is inside that body, but it is not the body. This is your experience. And in the same way, you are not your feelings, but you're experiencing them. And you're not your thoughts, but you experience them. Sometimes they torture you. How can you be your thoughts? You are ambivalent in relationship to your own thoughts. You fall in love with your own principles. So you are not your principle. You fall in love with them. You see, you experience yourself being suffused by bliss, but you're not that bliss. You're just suffused by it. So there is really this element of that there is a certain layered world out there that your undifferentiated self, which is Atman, is experiencing. And this layered reality that you're experiencing has an hierarchical order, of course. And here the hierarchical order would be, I repeat it again, soul, bliss, principle, particular knowledge, feeling vitality, and body. It's good. I think it's one can put it straight like this without making too many words about it. Let's do that. What's really important, okay, and what's really important is that we do some nice drawings. Since we have an artist here too, we have to do some nice drawings. So let's do that. And yesterday we also had the pranas. And you have the freedom to also do some drawings about the pranas if you want to. Would you like to?
Yeah.
So you can choose. Or we do koshas and then also we do pranas. Okay? Or now we do koshas and in the afternoon we do pranas. Drawing.
Sure.